The New Jersey Devils are secretly planning something huge. New Jersey Devils news, and it could be regarding that man right there, Dougie Hamilton. And we'll give you a little update on Cody Glass for you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into Devils Digest. I'm your host, Ryan the Goose Gosiker, here with you as always, bringing you the latest, greatest Devils content. As we always try to do before we get into the program, I want you to be a subscriber to the channel. We need your help in getting to 500 subscribers. We need your help to get to that goal of 500 subscribers. So hit that subscribe button and let's get into the show. Now, interesting Devils offseason coming up. As we know, GM Tom Fitzgerald promised, and you've heard me say it 100 times now, this team will look different. The question's going to be, how different? What does that look like? And we are just days and hours away from getting answers, real answers, to exactly what that looks like for the Devils 2025-2026 campaign. So, I've talked to you guys a lot about the Devils salary cap and how they have to move things. And, you know, again, you run up and down this roster, there's not a ton, there's a ton to move, but there's not a lot of names, right? So you're looking at Jesper, Jack, Nico, Timo, all steady, right? Markstrom and net, okay? You just locked up Kovacevic. Brenden, Dillon just signed last offseason. Pesce just signed last offseason. Okay, we're anticipating a Luke Hughes contract extension at any moment now in time. Okay, so a lot of those guys are locked in. Okay, but in order to make the team look different, outside of your bottom six being mostly free agents, you're going to have to move money somewhere. And the top three candidates for New Jersey coming into this offseason, or really top four, I would say it went Palat as number one, Haula as number two. People think Mercer's a good trade chip with the $4 million in cap. And the last one, which was a surprise to me earlier in the offseason, but not surprised now as of late, is Dougie Hamilton. And his contract coming with a huge $9 million AAV carry for this team. It's one of those things, and it's really hard to do, right? And I'm just going to premise what I'm going to say. You know, this is the tweet. Friedman, Dougie's full no move becomes a 10-team list where he can be traded to on July 1st. I think people are very curious to hear what New Jersey is going to do with that. Now, the Devils could do nothing, right? They could just sit there and say Dougie's part of this team. He was, the first big free agent signing for this version or this, young generation of the Devils, right? I mean, he was a few years ago. Signed that big 7-year, $63 million deal. And he participates in all the social media marketing, chips and everything like that. Douglas the Professor and Dougie's buddies and stuff like that you see at the games. I know Douglas the Professor was the one that put out the schedule last year. He did the schedule release video. Even when he's been hurt, he's still involved with the team and everything like that. Now, that can't be the deciding factor. However, I will tell you, I believe that will be why the Devils don't move on from him. I think if you're looking at things and you got a list of pros and cons and things get close, I think they're going to say, man, like, the people of the fan base love him. Okay, although I will say this. I have been reading Twitter, okay, ever since this tweet came out. And it's really split. It really is. And I think a lot of people, the move on from Dougie is not move on from him because he's a terrible human, right? Or, he's got this charge against him or this, that, and the other thing. It comes down to the cap hit and the production. Now, he's been hurt for the majority of the last two seasons, but unfortunately for him and how it works in sports is your best ability is availability. And if he's currently not available more frequent than he is available, that's a problem. He also, in particular, looked a little bit slower on the ice when he came back from injury last year. He also just didn't look as effective on the power play as we've come to know, meaning Luke Hughes should run point on power play 1 next year. Okay, that's my opinion. You could disagree with it. Let me know in the comments, but he looks confident up there. We don't have to debate the Devils, power play right now. But as you can see, this is Dougie's contract hits. The cap hit is $9 million. And we talked about it. They've created a logjam on their defensive development side with their right defenseman, because Dougie's locked up for, you can see it right there, it's 3 more years, the next 3 seasons. Okay, Kovacevic is there, and I believe it's Pesce that's there, or it's Pesce or Dillon. 2 of those 3 are there. So long term, the Devils are locked up on that right side. Meanwhile, they get 2 huge prospects in Shimon Nemec and Seamus Casey, who both happen to play on the right side. So it's creating a logjam, and at some point, somebody's got to go. And if you're the Devils, you're looking to make big sweeping changes. If that's what you're looking for, then this is a move you have to explore, right? They still got to get Palat's contract off the books. But if you clear Dougie's too, that's $15 million in cap space. They can sign one of these big-time forwards in the offseason and go from there. It's a really tough debate. I really love Dougie as a human being and what he's meant to the Devils and how he's brought about himself. So, there's a good amount of times to see athletes not handle themselves maybe the way we want them to, or they mouth off to the press, stuff like that. Dougie has been a consummate professional since he stepped foot here in New Jersey. So it would be really tough to see him go. However, when we break it down to X's and O's in hockey and development and potential to bring in more star power, particularly scoring, I think it's a real consideration. It has to be for GM Tom Fitzgerald. And if it's not, to me, it's malpractice if he's not at least taking the phone calls and figuring out what can be done to potentially get that $9 million off the books, right? Because not only do you have Luke's potential extension this offseason, or expected extension this offseason, you've got Nico in 2 years, okay? Jack a couple years after that, right? So it's not penny pinching necessarily, but it's also thinking ahead a little bit here as well. And again, it allows you to go out and be super aggressive in the market and allow your guys to still develop. We talked about this in the Jake Allen video of the idea of Daws not being the backup yet again, right? And I saw some comments in that video, and it's not even necessarily about Daws' development, because I see both sides. I see what people are saying. He's never really impressed to the point of we think he's gonna be a superstar. But their goaltender right now that's still in college, Yegaroff, I believe is his name. He looks like he's going to be a stud. So you need to not clog that lane. So it's the same idea to me on the defensive side is at some point you have to unclog this. At some point, somebody's got to pour the Drano down the pipe and hope it, clears. Or you got to get the snake thing and, go in there. So it's a really interesting debate, okay? And here's Dougie's, career. Again, just not necessarily the best season for him last year, 40 points, okay? We'd love him to be back at that 73 mark that he was the year the Devils really popped off, okay? But I'm not saying I would trade Dougie Hamilton. What I am saying is that this needs to be a real grown-up discussion with GM Tom Fitzgerald and other general managers around the league, and he cannot hang up the phone. If somebody calls about Dougie Hamilton, Tom Fitzgerald needs to answer the phone, and if it's the right deal for New Jersey, they're going to have to make the move. And like I said, run it down with me, right? The options to clear salary right now, you're looking at who's still on the roster. They got rid of Haula, right? They moved his $3.15 million out. You've got Palat, Mercer, Dougie. Who else are you moving on from? Like, who's the other guy? You're not moving on from Nason, okay? You're not moving on from Dillon. You're not moving on from Pesce, okay? So what the Devils do this offseason is they need to get creative. And this is a move I definitely could not have seen coming a couple months ago. But if the Devils do decide to do it, I'll be upset for Dougie the person. But in terms of Dougie the hockey player, I just think maybe this is the best move for New Jersey is to move on from Dougie at this point, just to keep salary space open. Again, take the phone call, Tom. That's all I'm asking. As a Devils fan, as a Devils Digest host, all I'm asking is you take the phone call. Now, one last piece of business, Cody Glass. I mentioned it in the beginning. Devils didn't qualify offer him because they thought they could get him cheaper, and now they're understanding that supply and demand, how that whole economic thing works, how the market works. is that teams are hot after him and will give him more on the open market than what the Devils could have gotten him back for. I think it was $2.5 million with the qualifying offer. They said, no, we think we can get him cheaper. And now they're about to potentially find out that, no, you couldn't have gotten him cheaper and potentially lose a guy they give up assets for. So kind of frustrating on that end, but we'll see. I think Cody Glass ends up back in red and black next season. So Devils got to find a way to make it happen. Okay, and that's going to do it for this episode here on Devil's Digest. We appreciate everybody for listening, for watching, however you're consuming this content. We appreciate you. Aiden and I both do. And I just want to make you aware, Aiden is going to do a live stream for the NHL Draft tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay, so make sure you're tuned into the channel. Okay, he's going to take you through the draft and everything and the different prospects the Devils could take. Devils not picking in the first round. Okay, so Aiden's got a lot to talk about, and he's going to need your help. Okay, so make sure you bring the noise with the comments and make sure you're geared up and fired up and ready to go and let him know that you support him as well and support the Devil's Digest community. So again, I appreciate you. Please subscribe to the channel. Let's get us to 500 subscribers. Leave us a comment. Are you willing to trade Dougie Hamilton? It's a great question. I hope to see some answers in the replies. Okay, again, keep doing your thing in the comment section, all right? We love it, we appreciate it, and we love to interact back. So I want to thank everybody, and we'll catch you next time on Devil's Digest.